In this lesson, we're going to look at how we solve equations when we have letters on both sides of the equal sign. Now, just like last lesson, the layout is very, very important. You should only have one equal sign per line, and the equal sign should be lined up underneath each other. So to start with, we're going to look at solving equations with unknowns on both sides. Then we'll introduce brackets, and some of you might get on to writing and solving equations. So let's have a look at when we have letters on both sides. An equation could look something like this. The strategy here is to collect all the terms involving the x on one side of the equal sign and all the constant, i.e. all the numbers, on the other side. So let's just work through this one. So what we want to do here is we want to collect all of the terms with the x in on one side of the equal sign. So we don't want this 2x here, so we want to get rid of this 2x on the right hand side. So I'm still going to follow the strategy of doing the opposite and doing the same to both sides. So I'm going to take 2x away from each side, put my instructions in my brackets as usual there, and do that to both sides. So let's see what that looks like on the next line of working. If we take away 2x from the left hand side, 5x take away 2x is 3x, so I'm left with 3x plus 3. So I can subtract the 2x from the 5x because they are like terms, they both have x's in. Remember, I can't actually subtract the 2x from the number because they are not like terms, they're not in the same bucket. So I'm subtract the 2x from the 5x to give me 3x, and I've still got my plus 3. On the right hand side, if I subtract 2x, that gets rid of my 2x, and I'm just left with 9. I could, at this stage, decided to get rid of the 5x on the left first, and I could have taken 5x from each side, but what that would have left me with is it would have left me with a negative x term, which is what we want to avoid. We want to try and keep our x term positive, so we take away the smaller amount of x's. So by taking away the 2x, I'm left with positive x term, which is plus 3x. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to carry on like we did in last lesson, is I'm going to get rid of this plus 3 by doing the opposite. So I'm going to take away 3 from each side. So that leaves me with 3x is equal to 9 take away 3 is 6. Again, still keeping my equal signs, one per line and lined up underneath each other. So now I want to undo my 3 in front of the x. Remember, that's a multiply by 3. So I'm going to divide by 3. Do the same to both sides. Just move this equal sign down a little bit. So what we're left with there is x on the left hand side, and then 6 divided by 3 is 2, and there's my answer. X equals 2. Now I could check that this works by substituting this x is 2 back at the top here. So let's just have a go at that. If I substitute 2 in here, I've got 5 times by 2, which is 10, plus 3 is 13. So I get 13 on the left, and on the right I get 2 times by x. So 2 times 2 is 4, plus 9 is also 13. So I'm left with 13 equals 13, so I know that I'm correct. So when we get a whole number answer, it is quite straightforward just to substitute that back answer into our original equation and check that we are indeed correct. Okay, let's write another example down into our exercise book. So again, you can print the note sheet to write on and stick in your book, or you can write this straight into your book. And we've got some important notes down the side here. Okay, so we can see I've got a terms on both sides here and numbers on both sides, and the strategy, I want to get all the a terms on one side and all the numbers on the other. Okay, so always we want to start with the letter terms, so I'm either going to subtract the 2a or I'm going to subtract the 11a, but I want to keep my a terms positive, so I'm going to subtract the smaller a term. So to both sides of my equation, I'm going to take away 2a. So on the next line of working, what am I left with? Well, subtracting 2a gets rid of the 2a, and so what I'm left with here is minus 13. Now what's really important is we don't lose this minus sign in front of the 13. Remember, this minus belongs to this 13. Subtracting 2a on the right hand side, well, I can subtract 2a from the 11a, so that gives me 9a. I can't subtract 2a from 4 because they're not like terms, so I get 9a minus 4. So our aim still is to get the a term on its own. So now I want to get rid of that subtract 4 by adding 4 to both sides. On my next line of working, that's going to give me on my right hand side, that's going to give me 9a because that's got rid of the minus 4. On the left hand side, minus 13 plus 4 is, think about your number line in your head to do this one. Start at minus 13 plus 4, so move to the right 4, so we get minus 9. So we end up with minus 9 equals 9a. Again, following through my steps. So I've got 9a, I want to get rid of that 9, so do the opposite. Let's divide both sides by 9. So that gives me a on the right hand side, that's got rid of my 9, and then I've got minus 9 divided by 9. Well, I know a positive divided by a negative divided by a positive is a negative, so my overall answer is negative, and 9 divided by 9 is 1, so I get a is equal to minus 1. Right, I'd like you to have a go at this one. The answer is going to come out as a fraction, but we worked with those last lesson, so that should be okay. So pause the video, have a go at it, and then you can start the video again and compare your solution. So first of all, combine the y terms by subtracting the smaller amount of y, so we subtract 5y from each side. Now we want to get the y on its own on the right hand side, so we're going to start by adding 2 to each side. And then finally we want to get rid of that multiplied by 3, so we're going to divide by 3. And oh, the answer is not a fraction. That was a little bit misleading, so sorry about that. Okay, now let's have a look at this one and what happens if we have brackets in our equation. So when we have brackets in our equation, the first step is always to expand any brackets. So remember, when we're expanding brackets, we multiply the term outside the brackets by everything inside the brackets. So on the left, we're going to have 4x minus 4, and on the right, we're going to have 8x plus 16. So I've not really done any solving of the equation yet, I've just expanded the brackets to get the equation ready to solve. Again, start with the letter terms and subtract the smaller amount. So I'm going to subtract 4x from each side. Remember that minus in front of the 4 belongs to the 4, don't drop it. 8x minus 4x is 4x. Next, I want to get rid of this plus 16. So I need to do, oh, don't make that mistake, that's a common mistake, forget to do the opposite. Now we need to minus 16 from both sides. So on the right hand side, I've got rid of that plus 16. Minus 4 minus 16, again think your number line, that's going to give us minus 20. And finally, we're going to divide by 4, which gives me x on the right hand side. Minus 20 divided by 4, and minus divided by plus is a minus. 20 divided by 4 is 5, so I'm left with x equals minus 5. So now I want you to have a go at some questions out of your textbook. Again, you can start on the challenge or the super challenge and move on to the hyper challenge when you've finished your super challenge. You must make sure that your equations are laid out exactly as I have shown you, equal sign, one per line, and lined up underneath each other.